All right. I am excited to have my longtime friend Heidi DeCoux on the show. Heidi is a serial entrepreneur, 20 plus years, three successful exits, the whole shebang. Heidi, good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We first met in Puerto Rico, like, gosh, what was that, like 2017 ish,
Yeah, probably
2018?
2018, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And our mutual friend Mark Wade had put on an event, Mark and Krista, and they did it twice. And I went to both of them. I think we met at the first one. Back then, you were running the travel business,
Yep.
which you have sold. I'd love to dig into that because I think I'm a creative and an artist, and you're actually legitimately an entrepreneur. You know, can you have you always been entrepreneurial? Is that just the way that you grew up?
Yeah,
Was
well,
that model for you?
it was not my so I do believe I came out entrepreneurial, but my parents really didn't understand that or know what to do with it because all my parents and both my step parents all have worked at the same blue collar union jobs for 40 plus years, which they all retired from. So, and I was in from small town, Minnesota. It was a very just, blue collar worker, small town. And here I am like dreaming up business ideas at age 9. And, and then as an adult I was working from home way before that was a thing. And so my parents literally were like, oh, like, what are you doing? How do you pay your bills? Is it legal? Like, our friends ask us what you do and we no idea. And then it just eventually they're like, it seems to be working out for her. So I guess we're just going to start. And they tried to get me to join the military after high school and like go into the trades, which because they all worked in the trades um, and I was built from a different cloth somehow.
So you just never worked like a quote unquote regular job. You never did time in a corporate environment or anything
A
like that.
little bit. So
Mhm.
my first like quote unquote real job was I managed um medi spa that was part of a plastic surgery clinic. So I managed a medi spa. Then I managed an athletic club and day spa in a Hyatt Regency hotel. I did that. And while I was doing that, I started my first like real business that was actually like, incorporated and stuff and was side hustling with that business. And I realized, I was running this 30,000 square foot facility with, all these employees. So it was a kind of a full 50 plus hour a week, job. And so it was really hard to get my side business like off the ground because I just couldn't dedicate the time and bandwidth to it. So I ended up taking kind of a cushy sales job, which was a pay cut, but it was I figured out like I could make the lease on my car and my mortgage payment. And I took in a roommate and I, did all the things, so that I could, get my business off the ground. And then that was the last like actual job that I had where I worked for anybody.
Oh yeah. So it's been a minute. I mean,
Been a minute.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it's been
No,
a
'cause I
minute.
was 25 at the time. 20, yeah, 25, 26 at the time. Yeah.
That's wild.
Mhm.
When you look back on your journey, like what are some of the more important skills or mindsets that you're like, wow, I never would have gotten to where I am today had I not cultivated those things? Because this is a long time that you've been an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and you've just been flying on your own and building these things. When you look back, what's been the most successful or most important thing?
Number one is figuring out that you will never figure it all out in your head. You have to actually just get into action and do things and then course correct those things that you're doing. So yeah, you can lay out a plan or, kind of have an idea, but you're never going to like work it all out perfect because there is no such thing. And there's so many things that you don't know and blind spots that you have that you will not figure out in your head. You have to get into action and just trust that you can course correct, course correct, course correct. And the other thing is there's no end. So for every business that I had that I eventually exited, so I built 4 companies, I exited 3 of them. And from the day that I started until the day that I sold it, we were course correcting. The website was never done. From the day I started until the day I sold the business, we never had a completed, quote unquote, done website. We never had a done sales funnel. We never had a done anything because you just have to reiterate and reiterate and reiterate and go in this direction and go in that direction. So, and you have to enjoy the journey, which earlier on, it was more like destination because I was scared. Like nobody around me was really doing this. Could I actually pay my bills? What, I'd had very young, so I dropped out of college very young. So I had my first real job. I was like 20 and making actually really good money. I mean, that was like 1998 and I was making like $45,000 a year. That's a lot of money in 1998 for a 20-year-old, right? So then I like bought a house, a duplex and rented out and leased a car, so I had this like lifestyle, and then I got this big, job managing this big athletic club and spa and the Hyatt and all of that. And so, so then when I went to this lower paying job and had the business and was, transitioning that, and even when I went to the business full time, because I'd replaced my income, it's never a guarantee. Business is up and down and all around, and you got to figure out cash flow and, all these things. And so you will just have to. So I guess that brings me to number 3. Everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. And so if you have the mindset that you can figure it out and you will figure it out and not get attached to that destination. So I think early on I was attached to like, a certain amount of money in my bank or a certain, number of clients in the business or a certain, whatever it was, I would get too focused on that and not enjoy the journey. And it wasn't until a little bit later that I realized actually the whole thing is the journey. Like that's it. Like the last company that I sold, the other 2 were pretty small, very small exits. And then I had a low 7-figure exit. So still small, but, a more legitimate exit. So my buyer this is the end of 2021. My buyer flew to Puerto Rico so we could, go to the lawyers, close everything and start the transition. Selling a business like that is an exhausting process. You go through due diligence. He was getting an SBA loan, which adds a lot of complexity. We were, still in COVID. It's exhausting. And so you have these full-time jobs in addition to your full-time job. And so we get to the dinner after like leave the lawyer's office. The deal is done. He's excited. I'm excited. We're at dinner. We're with my best friend, our mutual friend, Selena Sue. She looked at us and she's like, you 2 have been working months. You're supposed to be so happy and excited. And you both look like you're going to plop over in your plates of food and fall asleep and you don't even care about being here. And we looked at each other and we're like, basically, that's how we feel. Like it was, even though we were, you just like, okay, that's it, like that's it. And now he has like a new thing. And, I spent like 9 months or whatever transitioning and working part-time in that business. And he's doing well with it today and, all of that. And still I help him out here and there. But the journey is the thing. It's not the pinnacle, like whatever for you, whether that's an exit or a retirement or whatever it is. It's really like the journey.
So I've heard people say this. I'm curious, and I know that in my head. And I still am like, no, I'm gonna sell all this stuff out. And once I hit a certain number, I'm just gonna retire and I'm gonna live on a beach somewhere or, in Europe or Fiji or whatever it is, right? When did that click for you? When did you realize this is never gonna end? I'm a psycho. I'm
Yeah.
always gonna build things. I'm always gonna create. Like I know that in the back of my head, but I still think I feel like need to like I need to like feel like there's gonna be an end in sight one day. I know
Yeah.
there's not, but when did that switch for you?
The real switch, like the full, like the switch went fully on moment was probably 8, 9 months after I exited that business. So I'd gotten divorced, moved to a new city and sold my business all in Q4 of 2021. So fast forward, we're now like say 8 months later. And I had finally fully transitioned the buyer. He was running it. I had delivered everything. Things were going good for him. I finally had my new condo set up, which is very long process when you live on a Caribbean island. Not like it is in the States. It's a whole grueling process. And my ex-husband and I had a checklist of literally 63 things that needed to get untangled post-divorce, just to like the logistics, which I could do a whole masterclass on that. And I had so many decisions I will make very differently next time. But anyway, I was sitting there. I had literally checked off the last item on that checklist. the painter came in my condo and had done the final touch-up paintings because the final furniture had been delivered and the final, like, everything was done. And my buyer that morning, this just, I didn't plan this. This just, that morning we had met and he's like, I'm feeling really great. Everything's done. You've over delivered. How about can you do would you be willing to just do like a monthly call with me? And I'm like, yeah. So we just had that nice conversation. The painter came in. My ex-husband and I are on like, oh my God, are we really just checking off the last item? Like we were kind of starting to think like, we were going to be tied together on the spreadsheet for the rest of our lives because as we would check things off, more things would come up that we would have to get added, right? So we just kind of were like, yeah, we're going to be 80 still doing this together. So that all happened. And I was getting on a plane the next day to go back to Minneapolis, where I'm from, to celebrate my birthday and see my family. And I like had this surreal moment where I was like, oh my God, it's like done. I'm like free. Like I have no more. But then what hit me was, literally no one on this planet is dependent on me. I'd had a husband with a live-in mother-in-law that was emotionally and physically dependent on me. I had employees that were dependent on me. And even after that, I had a buyer that was dependent on me. I had an ex-husband that was dependent on me doing this list, and I stopped and I was like, nobody needs anything from me. I have I have no identity anymore. I'm not a wife. I never became a mother. I don't have a business. Every business prior, I had started the next business before I exited the other one. So I had never not worked since I was like 9. And so it hit me that I was like, I don't actually have like a purpose. I don't, and that's when I had to kind of go through the dark night of the soul. And that was the start of that process where I realized, oh, this was all about the journey, not about this moment where I'm just like alone in my condo with no real identity and not attached to anything. And I am a worker in that I love to create value and put it out into the world. I totally dig that. And I like using, my version of creative energy to do that and to solve problems. And when and I needed that void for a while. I actually needed to do a lot of like emotional healing and I needed to get quiet and silent. And it was an incredibly important time in my life. And I wish for everybody to be able to take a sabbatical. I think it would be really healthy for our society if we were set up in that way. So I'm glad that I didn't busy myself and that I just accepted the blank slate and kind of the noneness of it all. It was very, very important for me. But I came out of that realizing, when I start my next business, man, I'm going to just love every second of it, even the tough times, even the tough days. I was actually saying this to one of my lead investors at our launch party recently. I said, this is the last time. So this is the last time in my life I'm going to work this hard. I'm growing something, quite big, looking for a super legitimate exit. And I want to put something really, really valuable out into the world that really like changes the scape for solopreneurs and supports them. And I want it to like live on way beyond me and be supportive of this population of people that I believe so heartedly in and are the backbone of our economy, which are these solopreneurs, one person businesses. And there will come a day when I transition out of this and I go into more nonprofit work, which I'm really passionate about, financial literacy and, raising up at-risk youth, et cetera, and work in different ways. But this is the thing that I know I'm going to look back on when I'm 80, 90, and 100 and remember just being in the trenches, building this big, incredible machine that had an incredible lasting impact that, made it impact beyond me. And even on the really tough days, those are the ones that you think back and you're like, man, we had this really complicated problem and I freaking solved it. And you remember the days that you're in the trenches with like your sleeves rolled up and you're just like, "Grr," like that's what you remember, right? More than anything, even more than like the celebrations. And he's like, I'm going to remind you, you're going to have some tough weeks ahead and you got some tough battles ahead and you. And he's like, you call me and I'm going to remind you. You said, and I was like, great.
I love that you said when I start my next business. It's like you knew. First of all, that void sounds great. Like just to like release all of that energy. I remember I went through something similar in my own way. When I went through the divorce and like there's just so much energy around that. Even if it ends amicably, you're like letting go of, like we've talked offline about this, like you're letting go of this future that you thought you were going to embody.
Mhm.
right? So there's a real grief around that. And then it's like hard to keep moving sometimes. Some people keep moving or move more. I did that. And other people just completely shut down. And
Mhm.
like neither's good,
Mhm.
right? Like, but you just got to do what you got to do. When you went through that, like I have so many questions around this. Like, so you're like kind of like clearing all that energy, and you're sitting there like at home, and you're just like, I literally don't have anything to do. You've gone through these big shifts, and you seem like you're good at letting go of things. Is that true, or is it just a struggle? Whether it's a
No.
business, the marriage, like letting go. I think a lot of us have trouble letting go, and as we get older, we have more of a hard time letting go because like it's, oh, I don't want to start something from scratch again. So I'm really interested in
Mm.
that duality. Like, where do you get this energy to start new things but also let things go? Like, what's that like for you?
That actually comes pretty natural to me. I am a let goer. I don't know, I think I acquired that as a kid. I had some childhood trauma that, as much as it, messed me up and required therapy in my 20s, there's always another side to it, right? And there's a side of I did get some value out of that, right? Where it was like there was just a lot of forced letting go as a kid because I was kind of upheaval and sent here and then upheaval and sent there and had to just like, come figure out a whole new thing and didn't have any control over any of it. And so, but that served me well in adulthood because I already had the skill of like not getting too attached. And, my core belief is that it will all work out. It always has. I will figure something out to make this, and it will just like flow in a new direction and there'll be something new and brighter and better over here. And I'm not going to just keep, you know, pounding a drum that doesn't want to be pounded anymore, right? That doesn't make any sense.
Hmm. How important have partners been for you, like in your dream? Not just like romantic partners per se, friends, co-founders. Like I'm hearing that a lot, like in your nature of businesses. I've been a solopreneur basically for the
Mhm.
entire time that I've been in business for myself. And I've noticed I'd like certain moments or seasons in life, I will find myself getting back into kind of marketing, deliverable, and agency work. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not that profitable.
Mhm.
I'm spending way more energy and time doing this than building some other systems. But then I think I really miss camaraderie. I miss
Mhm.
being part of a
Mhm.
team. And there's a
Mhm.
dynamic in creative work, and you know this because you do a lot of marketing too. But it's like just to work on projects together and get
Mhm.
around those people, even if we're working
Mhm.
remotely. And I know that you and your ex were like, you guys did a lot of overlap with your work, right? So
Mhm.
there are a lot of applications there. I didn't, but I just realized I missed having someone to talk to or someone to text or share these wins with. And then like my team kind of became like that. But then the team would move and shift over time because they had all lives.
Mhm.
I'm not everything in their life. How important is that for you? Do you like these new ventures? Are you someone who's like, who can I get with me to build this together because we want to go do this together? Or are you more just like a lone wolf and you're like, the right people will come to me?
In the past, I was always the lone wolf, the right people come to me, and for the most part, they did. I, attracted in good teams. Not to say we didn't, I hired the wrong people and had to fire and whatnot, all the normal things. But in general, I've attracted good people. I had some people that were with me for years through multiple businesses. So I'd launch the next thing and then exit that thing and move them over and that kind of thing. I mean, that's another thing that I've learned is like mistakes are I don't look at them at very rarely are you making a mistake that's either unrecoverable or that doesn't actually just was just a stepping stone. If you really look back at your mistakes, they were actually just stepping stones. You couldn't have gotten to where you are had you not, made these steps. I was watching somebody did a like 2 metal balls that roll, and one of them is rolling on a straight line, and one of them is going like, shh, shh, and the one that went like this got to the destination faster. It's like
Yeah.
actual like a physics thing. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense," because in business, I used to beat myself up for that, like, if I made a choice that didn't work out and had to course correcting, because course correcting does kinda get exhausting, especially if you have resistance around it. And so I would kind of beat myself up about that. And the reality is I needed to do all of those things. They were actually like really important part of the process. And now I think I've, people are like, how do you have so much energy? And you just like, even though, you know, there's some difficult days, but I'm just being chill about it because the more resistance you have, the more tired you're going to get and the less good decisions you're going to make. So just let the resistance go and just embrace the process.
Yeah.
Know
Uh,
that like this process, as weird as it seems, is actually going to get you there faster.
yeah. I love that. I like, and it's funny. I'm sure some people are like, are we talking about like a business partnership or like an actual partner? You know, because they're like very similar. The way that we all handle these relationships. I know people sometimes say like every business problem you face, or almost every business problem you face, is a personal problem in disguise. Right? It's like a lot of the decision making processes are much clearer for me in business compared to my personal life. But you realize those principles are the same, everything that you just shared. I look back on my life and I'm like, whether it was a business partner or collab that went sideways, or even just like my divorce, those were like the best things that happened to me. Yeah, it's like you learn the most from it. I remember when I was kind of going through that season in my life, my counselor, my therapist, she was like, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and it's over 90%, the divorce rate for entrepreneurs. It's like really freaking high for whatever reason. At first I used to think it's just because they're too busy. And I don't think so.
Mm.
I think it's because like if you're really, really throwing your hat in the ring and trying to stand on your own 2 feet and fly um on your own, you're always growing.
Exactly.
And you tend to outgrow, like
Mhm.
you outgrow these little stupid issues, or like you have, and if you can't trust that the people around you, whether you're working with them or you're doing life with them, are looking themselves in the mirror and saying like, I might be the problem here, let me figure out how to grow, like you're not going to move forward. What are some of the lessons you learned there?
Oh,
You're
yes.
like, what
Lessons.
are like, whoa, wow, I see that about myself, because I know you take self responsibility.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
our friends do, otherwise we wouldn't be friends with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, what are some things that you picked up on, like about yourself, or that have really helped you now?
Yeah. Well, I know myself a lot better now. And like what works for me, what doesn't, what makes me tick, what, the Heidi today would never I would go on one date with my ex-husband and then be like, "Well, we're not a match. This was great. Wish you well. Peace out." He and I were very much a wound match in that, like, not in the good way, in the like, because of my woundings, I'm bending, 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 bending to you. And because of your woundings, you're bending, bending, bending me, like making me bend. And eventually you just break. Right. And I'm not breakable anymore. I've healed all of that. I'm not available to that anymore. And I'll make a very different choice going forward.
Yeah, I think knowing, like, I look back at my situation, I was like, wow, I was a big time caretaker. And the dynamics didn't, like, I was super young. I was 27, but she was 20. And we got married for like all the wrong reasons. Like, okay, we got to speed this up because there were some like immigration issues. And if I sat down, I'm 46 now, and I sat down with someone who was 27 years old, like let's say it's a younger cousin of mine, and he's like, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna get married to this girl. She's 20, and I've only known her for 6 months, and we're gonna get married because we need this immigration paperwork." I'd be like, "You don't have a shot in making like it." It's just such common sense to me now because I can
Mhm.
see it, and it's not a slight on this person or that person. It's just you don't even know yourselves, let alone each
Right.
other. You've had no time. And why are you doing this? Oh, we're gonna make it. We're not like anybody else. We're not like everyone else out there. It's like, okay, Mister Inflated self confidence, right? Like when you're young, but that's what you do. And then you go kind of go through it. I realized like this was seeping over into a lot of my client relationships. I was doing more than I should be. I was taking on responsibility for their success when I was really just responsible, especially back then, just for deliverables.
Mhm.
And you just start to pick up on these patterns and like, why am I rescuing
Mhm.
everybody? Oh, because that's where you think your value is,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
you just start to learn these things about um, how you're making these decisions. And it's like, okay, and you talk a lot about money, which we didn't really even get into, but I'm going to have you back because I want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing for solopreneurs. But like my relationship, not just with my business or my work life or this person, but also my relationship with money, my relationship with confrontation. I've started to use that phrase,
Mm,
my relationship with fill in the blank. And they can
mhm,
all be inanimate things. And most of the time they are. Like I wrote a letter to money a few months ago. It was the weirdest thing. It's like, you come and go whenever you feel like it. I feel like when I chase you, you run away. And when I don't do anything, you come to me. Like, you're like a toxic partner. Like, what is the deal with you? And then I wrote a letter to work and I'm like, why do you always take from me more than like, why do you always want more than what I give you? I give you so much more than I normally, like any normal person would. Like,
mhm.
what is it about you that I find such toxic, chaotic peace in? Like, it's like, and then I'm like, I gotta stop having these conversations and loading them into ChatGPT. This is getting way too weird. I gotta go out, like you said, I gotta go out, walk around, go meet people. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but that was just like just like interesting things that I'm now unpacking in
Yeah.
my mid 40s, and you're just like, damn, dude, like, all right, we got to figure out what this next phase of life is going to look like because I think I still have a hard time
Mhm,
recognizing that I have a lot of these skills and experiences that allow me to really create whatever future I want.
mhm.
And I love that about you. I've always, like, I remember when we met, like, you just had this energy about you that you, it's just like, man, she's got this, this vibe. You're just like, I'm going to figure things out. I'm going to keep moving things forward. So it's been really cool to just kind of see what you've been building. And then when we get times to catch up, it's been really cool. But any thoughts on that, like for yourself and like for people listening in? Because they're all over the map. Some are starting,
Mhm.
some have had a measure of success and they're like, I'm bored now. Like, go read The Second Mountain by David Brooks,
Yeah.
right? Go, that'll help you a lot. That's helped me a lot. But any thoughts on that? Kind of what you've seen and experienced?
Let's see. I mean, I resonate with everything you're saying. I have those kinds of conversations with ChatGPT, which I actually think is really valuable, quite frankly. I mean,
Oh,
ChatGPT is
yeah,
so,
it is.
especially when it gets to know you. But this is part of just like your website's never going to be done and your sales funnel's never going to be perfect. And the same thing with yourself. Like, I think I used to get like, or no, I used to be very, when I'm finally healed, when I finally don't need therapy, when I finally have this figured out, when I finally have my mindset perfect and then I just realized that is never going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean I shouldn't continue to work on all those things. To the contrary, I should just now know that this is my life's work. This is part of the human experience. And I need to be with a partner that believes that as well and is doing that as well, which was the big issue in my marriage where I started the growth plan and was doing therapy and getting healed and figuring out these woundings and why I also was this extreme caretaker. And then was like, oh, have meticulously and painstakingly built this golden prison for myself and realize like I want to break out. But have all this sunk cost in this golden prison that I went into full fully walked in, fully ready to, you know, accepting it, right? And I needed to take full responsibility for the fact that I did that and now that I wanted to like break out of it. Um and, with business, the same thing. And now, personally and business wise, I just know there's no end. The end is when my soul transitions to whatever comes after this. And even that's not an end, I believe, whatever your personal beliefs are, but I don't even believe that that's an end. That's also just a transition. So I now look at my whole life, business, personal, all of it as just chapters. And right now I'm actually going through a big chapter change. I'm moving to a new country right now. I'm making a huge change in my business. It's just a new chapter. And so a big chapter is closing and it's a chapter that I'm incredibly grateful for. I needed this island of Puerto Rico that I'm currently on, but moving out of has been so good to me. I've met all my best friends that I have today. I met here in the last 7 years. My a lot of my investors for my tech startup came out of here, or they came out of relationships that were connected to here. My idea for my startup and serving solopreneurs to make their lives so much easier and better so they can just focus on their good work in the world and not have to worry about admin and minutia and accounting and all the stuff that they don't want to do. That idea got birthed here. I did deep healing here. I will forever be grateful to this beautiful island in this very important chapter in my life. And I am oozing with excitement about my next chapter.
I love that. I love what you said about sunk cost. I think people can get so distracted by that. That's one thing I didn't worry about. Like
Mm.
I did naturally as a human being. I'm like, oh, I've been, whether it's like a market that you serve, a business that you've built, a practice you've built, or a relationship, right? It's just like, oh gosh, I've got 13 years into this thing. And it's like, I think that's in some ways like an expression of a lack of faith and belief that you can create again. You can
Mhm.
generate again. And that's one thing I remember like walking away from, whether it was like collaborations in at work, whether it was partnerships, where I was like, no, I fundamentally believe that I can generate and create whatever I need down the road. Now, I right now, as of early 2025, I do still hope that there's an end, but you're telling me, I'm hearing you loud and clear. There is none. Just enjoy the ride, and that is what I'm trying to do. So, yeah. Hi, thanks so much for your time today. This is super inspiring. Just inspiring to me. And just I love like the stories that you shared, but also just like how you've grown and evolved as a person. It's just always really cool to see. I've got to have you back to talk a little bit more about the stuff that you guys are building for solopreneurs, and
Yeah, I would
we'll
love
do that
to.
once things
Yeah.
settle down. But where can people go to find you? I'll put obviously your social handles and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah, where's the
So
best place?
my tech startup designed to help solopreneurs is Cashflowy.ai. And so Cashflowy.ai. And then um, the social that I'm the most on is Instagram. So you can find Heidi DeCoux on Instagram. And then my just regular personal website, HeidiDeCoux.com, which you can drop it so that they can spell that
Awesome.
correctly. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, friend.
Thank you.
See you soon.